But it's even more than that, because it creates the micro and the macrocosmos. So Dr. Montessori realized that if she saw a child with behavior that wasn't positive, she would get them to polish something or clean something, because she knew that they were inwardly cleaning an aspect of themselves, working on their own psychology within. And once they've done that, they come out with order, and more positive behaviour is seen. So they've had a chance to work it out with their inner teacher. They've gone up and communed with their higher self, and they're just transmute, like there's this flame of transmutation that happens around them, and they work it out, and it's done.
Hello and welcome. My name's Campbell and this is Spiral Up. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. And today we've got another chat. We've got Christine and we're going to talk about the inversion of education. The education system, you know, we all know about the education system. So yeah, we're going to have a bit of a chat on maybe where it's going in the future and what options we have. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Campbell. It's beautiful to be here with you. Very excited to connect with you and bring forth what I need to share and bring forth.
Definitely. And Christine has just started a YouTube channel, so we'll leave the links to that below. Like many of us, she's not quite sure what she's doing, just sort of calling, go and do this. And so, yeah, so definitely go over, check out her stuff, support her, give her a like, a subscribe, and the link will be below. So, Christine, so you've been involved in Montessori sort of education for a while, is that correct?
I have. Well, I've been in the education realm for a while, so have got a good overview of mainstream education, which I was in for about 10 years, and Montessori also. Well, I've got my son who went through Montessori, so I saw his journey through my mum lens. And I got involved and trained up in Montessori about 6 years ago. So I've come, yeah, from both mainstream and Montessori slant. I bring, I've cross-pollinated like a few of us through our life. So I've got a holistic kinesiology background as well. So I bring energetic science with Montessori into the picture, and how the neurological energetic interface happens with learning. And also, you know, my spiritual practices, you know, following spiritual organization group, I suppose, for 22 years. So I've been awake to the battle,
yeah,
spiritual war for a while. And so it's great that we've got to this opportunity right now to be able to actually express it, and more people awake to it and can see it, and bring that experience of the spiritual toolkit that I've got to the fore as well, with education and how they've inverted the education system. And so once we see that, we can do the opposite.
Cool. Definitely. And it's perfect timing, like you said. I mean, look what's going on at schools. In Canada, all the students are walking out, so that's really good to see. But I mean, even apart from what's happened in the last couple of years, we know, you know, school is not about education. It's about indoctrinating people into doing a job and basically wasting their lives. So what is Montessori and how is it different to traditional education?
Okay, well, Dr. Maria Montessori came to education via her medical qualifications. So she got to observe through a scientific lens children, and came in a nutshell to the realization that there's a natural way of learning. She basically found the laws of the universe in how children develop and grow, and it's a natural unfolding. And she also identified there were certain things that children are drawn to, specific sensitivities that they were seeking out in the environment to learn an aspect for their psychological growth as well, and their understanding and mental capacity. So she created an environment, a prepared environment for children to be able to work in. So she saw very quickly that children have heart intelligence, and also they have an inner teacher. And she recognised that children actually go within and talk to this inner teacher to explore their environment, to choose those things in the environment that was calling to them. So over many years of researching and studying and following children all around the world, she recognised that children have a universal catch cry called, well, simply they say, please let me do it myself. So they're from an early age wanting to be independent. So we set the environment up to cater for that independence and allowing children to follow their own inner voice, which is their soul, communicating their intuition, communicating with their higher self. So she also saw lots of children burst into big moments of concentration, and through that concentration there was a convergence, and she used to see children transform themselves. And coming back out of that concentration, she noticed that they were quite different and more peaceful, more loving. Just there was a whole quality, more light around them. So yeah, very interesting.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Like if you let a child express themselves and live into their energy, they're going to have more energy than if you shut it down. So it sounds a lot more like facilitating rather than teaching. Like you're just facilitating the child because, like you said, they know what they want to do and what they're interested in anyway. So
that's right. So it's just facilitating the environment, setting the environment up for the children to actually explore, connect with their inner teacher and go and follow their interests. And through that, heart intelligence and the love of learning raises their vibration so that they actually can go up into a higher way of experiencing consciousness, tap into their higher self, and it's a mechanism that can actually bring out their inner genius and bring forth the inner genius, tap into all those aspects of themselves that have done mastery in previous lifetimes that are stored up there, and they can touch those and bring them down, bring them forth. And as we know that education, the inversion of education is the opposite to true education. So the system that we've got, like schools, we're not even fish, Cambell. No. Anyway, so they have taken children away from this inner world, this inner aspect, and connecting to their inner teacher and having an external teacher out the front giving them information. And we know also that there's a heart-brain connection. So if the heart is resonating at a nice vibrational rate, learning happens smoother. So yeah, the stress at school shuts people down.
Especially look at kids in their last couple of years with exams and that. I mean, they don't have fun at all, do they?
No.
And the brain heart connection is a big, it's a big thing that needs to be addressed. If anyone wants to know more, Heart Math Institute, right? Yeah. So obviously this has been going for a while now. The schools, how do you find, like, how do students do in life generally? Is there any studies there? Do you find that people who go through Montessori have better life skills? Because I'm thinking they're at least going to have better confidence, right? Because school is such a shutdown of confidence.
It is. And, we can take some reference points from the people that actually have gone through the system. So we know Richard Branson came through the Montessori system. Really? The two founders of Google, they both went to Montessori, and actually there's an interview on Google that there's an interview with them actually attributing how they think to their Montessori education. So it definitely gives children an opportunity to think outside the box not boxed in. So they recognise that and talk about that. The founder of Wikipedia, is it? And Amazon, we've got some great names. There's a whole hierarchy. There's some singers, famous singers that have come through the Montessori system, royal family. We know that I think it was Prince William educated his first son in a Montessori nursery in the UK, and it hit mainstream media, and the Chinese went crazy for Montessori, and overnight Montessori schools were set up in China. They couldn't get enough of it. So yes, lots of so-called famous people have come through the system, and so they recognise that indoctrination is in the other system, and yeah, choosing to do things differently and seeing a bigger picture and tapping into that inner aspect of learning.
Nice. So is this something that can also be integrated, because obviously there's a massive shift to homeschooling now. We're seeing these groups start up and form. Is Montessori something that can be adapted to that, or is it something that sort of needs to be set up as an environment?
Well, of course there needs to be an environment. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a Montessori school. Children between the age of 0 and 6 love order. So if there's an orderly environment at home and children know where things are, they're in their place, sets them up to also bring in the internal order that they naturally have, and there's like a sync and a frequency match to that. So just brings in, when children are working, they can start to recognise the flow of a work cycle, the beginning, middle and end of a task and a completion. So a Montessori school, even though there's Montessori schools out there, there's a lot of teachers that don't understand the spiritual backdrop of Montessori. It's kind of been watered down because it's pretty powerful. And when you can see and understand how it actually works on an energetic frequency mode, then we would have huge change on the planet, because children are our future, they're our answer, and they're already tapped in. So it's about eliminating as many hurdles as we can to allow them to have access to this voice of their inner teacher and commune with their higher self, and bring out the light, bring out the mastery and all the potential.
Nice. Which is completely against the schooling system, where they pretty much tell you God doesn't exist and the ether doesn't exist, and there's no fifth element or whatever you want to call it. Science the same, they can't even teach science because they can't mention the ether, and so none of their science works. That's ridiculous. So you mentioned that you had to go through extra training to be a Montessori teacher. So there's an actual course you need to do to get registered and everything if you want to teach?
That's correct. So with having said that, there's a lot of training organisations that don't cover the spiritual aspect of Montessori as well. So we've got not only...
And they call themselves Montessori?
Yes. So Dr. Marie Montessori identified that the spiritual preparation of the teacher is paramount. So the teacher needs to have transmuted a lot of their own shadows and, done all their trauma work and transmute just, the crap that they've had through their schooling system and life experiences. And that teachers need to have a certain high frequency in their heart before they even go to the child, because all the imprints of your own stuff can be passed on to the children. So the purer the heart, the better the space that you're able to hold for those children to come up and learn.
My whole life I've always wondered why teachers are pretty much on the low end of the pay scale. That is, these people, you guys are raising the future literally, and it's just like this. Oh no, we'd rather pay lawyers, all the money. It's just madness. And then what happens is look, we end up with all these teachers, right, that don't want to be teachers, that shouldn't be teachers. I mean, and what's happening in America with, the whole woke culture is just, it's just shameful, really. It's disgraceful. So that's such a big point. I mean, I agree to, and not an educator, right? If you want to be an educator or facilitator, I mean, anyone around children, you need to be a certain kind of person. Like you said, if you're full of blocks and all these hang-ups, you're just going to pass them. And even if it's not felt or seen energetically, even just explaining something, it's always going to have a tint of, oh, the world sucks, or oh, poor little me, or whatever. And this is what we don't want passed on to our children. This is what just makes the cycle, right? We just go around in circles, broken people making broken people. And it's like, hello.
Right. And it's not power and control over the child when you're in that teaching capacity. And certainly in a Montessori space, we don't even call them, we call them directresses, as opposed to teachers. So they're just like, you could think of a conductor in an orchestra and just setting the environment and tweaking things here and there so that the child's free to explore and follow their interests. And we step back and we just observe and we watch where the child's at and where they're ready for the next sort of lot of instructions to introduce them to more materials that will help them to the next step or where they are going with their evolution in the classroom.
So there's no, formal classes as such in Montessori?
There is, and it's multi-age grouping in a Montessori structure. So it's 0 to 3 years old, 0 to 3, yes, and 3 to 6, and then 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and it can go up to a high school as well. But yes, primarily the children are all learning from each other in a peer environment. So lots of leadership happening early at a very young age, and lots of role modeling going on with good practices. And it's built on a lot of grace and courtesy in the environment as well. So children quickly are learning respect for themselves, respect for others, and respect for the environment, which is really powerful.
That's huge, isn't it? I went to 10 schools, I went to many schools, but I went to one school where they had mixed classes. It was just 2 years together. But like you say, that gives children the chance to model off older children, but then they can actually, move through those 3 years and become that whatever, that leader or that inspirer or whatever. By the time they're 6, they can be learning these kind of things. That's, I mean, when you hear this, it just really just smacks you in the face of how inverted, right, the indoctrination system is. It's literally everything that they can do wrong, they do. That's what they push. Is there a big emphasis on the arts?
Well, there's qualities of art that children do learn, but it's also honing in on their perception. Like a lot of the materials are sensory rich to teach children certain concepts. So the art avenue is just another way of bringing art appreciation to the children. And so it's up to the directress how they would like to showcase that. But yes, there's a math area, there's practical life area, there's a language area, geography area, which we now have to look at because it's like you.
Yeah, I know, right? Probably send you some maps.
I heard you mention about doing some different mapping. And so in Montessori, they do have continent maps. They're beautiful maps, wooden puzzle maps, where children learn about the continents. So, I mean, that would be something that would be scrapped straight away in the classroom going forward, because, we have the globe as well to teach children land and water forms. So there's a few tweakings that needs to be done, and also, retraining the teachers. You don't need to necessarily have to go through a 2-year extra training to be a Montessori teacher. Montessori, she actually transfers her consciousness to the reader when you're reading her books.
Okay.
So she had the codes. She could articulate it. So when you're reading her words, you're taking on her vibration of what she's seeing, what she understands, and actually raising your own consciousness to how it works. So this is a great book for parents if they want to read The Secret of Childhood. Explains it so well, what she's seeing, the natural way of learning. It's just the I am laws, natural laws. And she basically described it all, and it's just natural laws, but they called it Montessori. So it's got a label on it, but it doesn't have to sit in Montessori.
What was her name again? Sorry.
Dr. Maria Montessori.
That was her surname.
Yes.
Oh, so,
Her surname. So she was the first.
French or?
Pardon me?
Was she French or English?
Italian.
Oh, Italian. Okay.
Yeah. So the first Italian female to become a medical doctor.
Oh, really?
There's a whole story about her having to push the establishment to even get her foot in the door to become a medical student. Yeah, so it's a real interesting.
Yeah, well, they're the best stories, right? Like people who have actually done it. We've got enough people running around telling you what to do and they've got no results. It's madness.
It is.
Yeah. So, like how would you structure a typical lesson? Just say you're teaching math. Do you sort of go into what how would you sort of approach that?
Well, the environment is set up in the same way every time the child comes into the space, so that they know where everything is and they don't have to reorientate themselves, and like they do in childcare, it's just a mishmash and everything's all over the place and children don't know where they are. So the environment is key. In fact, it's like the first teacher, the child just uses the environment to teach. So when a child very first starts in Montessori environment, there's a set of sequence of materials that they're introduced to, and so they get to have a presentation about how this material works and functions. And once they've had a lesson, they're able to use that material whenever they like. So they get to master this material. So the material is usually just a little bit ahead of where they actually are, so that they're being stretched to learn these concepts. And then so mastery happens over a slow period of time. And once the directress has seen mastery with particular material, then the next sort of sequence of materials introduced to bring them a bit stretch them a little bit further again. And so after they've done 3 years of math, well, put it this way, they can count to 1,000 by the time they're 4 and 5 years old by using a golden chain. So in Montessori, it's like they've got a math brain. Dr. Montessori realized they have a math brain, and she just gives them the materials in small sequence of steps to bring them up higher. And so they are counting with a golden bead chain to 1,000.
Nice.
From beginning to the end. And so just to compare that in mainstream, where I came from initially, they used to celebrate if a child could count to 5 when they were having their birthday cake and singing happy birthday. So Montessori gives children the universe.
Yeah.
And so they've got absorbent minds, which was identified. So, children can learn 4 or 5 different languages really easy at 3 and 4 years old. So Maria Montessori saw this, that they have an absorbent mind. So you give them the universe. So whatever you give a child, they take in. So it's key to know that children also take a reading from parents' auras in that early absorbent phase. So, everything is an impression and absorbed into the child.
Yeah, well, children are sponges, right? What is it the Jesuits say? Give me a child until they're 5 and I'll give you the man, because they know whatever you instill in a child. I mean, a lot of people say to 7 now, so 5 or 7, that's who they become. And so touching back on the environment, that's huge. Just to have a clean environment for one, like that's what they're going to grow up expecting, we're seeing as normal. But when you said everything has to be in its place, that's something we don't think about a lot, but that's pretty huge. When you've got a little kid and he wants to show mum something, and he goes to get the book, and the book's not there, it's like, what? But if it knows exactly and it can run and it can grab and, oh, look at this. And I know, apart from building confidence, like really big confidence, it just, yeah, it sounds very empowering. It's just something that I hadn't thought of. I mean, all these, it's the little concepts really, isn't it, that make the big changes, I think.
But also you're teaching, when you're giving children the opportunity to go within, you're actually helping them to find their north. And so they know how to navigate their life because they're able to go up to their higher self. They're getting an aspect of the God pure consciousness. You're giving them a barometer. You're giving them an already a sense of what it feels like. And so when they do come out into the world, they've got a benchmark of what is true and what is fake and false or evil. So it is. So they can navigate through a lot better once they've had that experience of the inner world. It's the God. I suppose it's the Christ consciousness that you are aligning their north to. Yeah.
I mean, and this is, you know what channels are, right? They're people who just got through the system and they held on to their connection to soul, and it's still talking to them. And the rest of us, we get told, don't daydream. I mean, seriously, first year of school, your imaginary friend doesn't exist, and don't daydream. Stop looking out the window, listen to me. The answer you gave me wasn't the answer that I wanted you to give me. So go stand in the corner, you get a big red X, and everyone will laugh at you. I mean, this is literally the first year of school, you know, little children. It is. It's a humiliation ritual. And unfortunately, we know what it is, right? Those who want to comply and jump in the line, yep, you know, ticks for you guys. Yep, sit at the front of the class. Anyone who wants to think for themselves, no, we won't tolerate that.
And we know what the stress, you know, hormones do to a child. It just shuts down the learning. It shuts down the memory and goes into survival mode. Whereas when they're operating from their heart, it actually attributes to the heart rate of a certain speed and vibration that then the heart sends chemical messages to the brain to get ready to learn and create new nerve fibers through coherent heart rate chemical. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. When we're in fear, we breathe fast and we can't think. I mean, so clearly there's a connection there.
Absolutely. And actually, when you talk about that, Dr. Montessori realized in utero, so she talks about the spiritual embryo. So she recognized in utero that children whose parents are stressed, I mean, that affects the child. So we know that the vibrational reading actually from the parents. So, for example, what I'm trying to say is if a parent's reading the newspaper every day of doom and gloom, that's a vibrational imprint on the fetus. So.
Yeah, and you know, the old, you know, dad coming home from work and all bringing all the energy, the bad energy in, and I've had such a crap day. And that's the first impression the kids get every day, right?
I know. It's a minefield. It's a minefield potentially at home. It's a minefield in the schooling system. And then, you know, they go out into the world and it's just perverted. They've got to find their way, and their north is gone. You know, they've been taught their north is that way, and they've got no discernment about what is real and what isn't real, and what's true, what's light and what's dark.
It's just mad. It's just madness. Things are changing now, obviously, but literally, yeah, parents would get jobs, they would hate them, hate their lives, you know, always be angry, and then they would put their kids through school to have the same experience. It's like, what is going on here?
Yes.
So the indoctrination is just so strong, but clearly, you know, we're at a turning point, right? We're hitting a age of Aquarius, which is all about ether, energy, you know, the higher realms, and obviously, you know, Montessori seems to be a fit for that. Now, you did say though that there was some schools that don't hit the spiritual. How is Montessori and how is what's going on at the moment? Has that affected schools or anything?
Well, there's a lot of Montessori schools that are run privately or a parent co-op operate the management side of things. So it depends on who is on the parent boards, who's at the, the head of who's the head of the school.
Right.
Where are they spiritually? Are they awake? Are they aware of this, the true spiritual aspect of Montessori, which a lot of them don't know because they bring their own.
I didn't. We've all heard of Montessori, and I didn't understand that, it was such a spiritually sort of based thing. So definitely. And so many people, get into hypes of things. Oh, Montessori, and they, oh yes, education is a thing for this month. Oh, let's do Montessori. And they just sort of start it with a little bit of information. And it's, unfortunately that people doing that are just degrading, the idea really, aren't they? They're sort of polluting it really.
They are. And it's, there is a science behind it, I suppose, in that it's so natural that parents aren't actually used to the natural aspect of it because it comes up against their own
schooling. Indoctrination. Yeah.
I ran a 0 to 3 parent-child program for quite some years. So it was a challenge for parents to come in and put their hands behind their back and not step in and do things for their child. And it actually raises their stuff that they do get triggered, which is a good thing. So it's quite a healing thing for a parent to come along with their child to a 0 to 3 program and help them to heal their own pain and trauma and pick up stitches from their own childhood that they can then, move forward a bit more calmly and peacefully and in love, and often see parents transform alongside their children because there's lots of transmutation of their own trauma.
Yeah, and they can see it, go and see it happening in the results. Are there any resources for parents? Because I can imagine there must be a lot of parents, and especially a lot of parents who, want this for their children and sort of believe it but don't really understand it and can't embody it. And that would be a bit of a disjunct, right, for the kid, the child coming from school to home.
Yes. And there are a lot of sensorial materials in the 3 to 6 and further up the age scales. However, you can set up a lot of experiences in your home, and the practical life area is really underestimated, and it's probably one of the most powerful aspects of Montessori because it really does get children into contact with the Divine Mother. And there's a real love vibration when the children go up and go into the right brain. There's a lot of right brain work because it's all love. It's just going right brain and left, they do cross the midline. But children love to model and imitate their parents. And they love cleaning and doing practical life skills. So, setting up a stump of wood outside with some nails and a hammer and just showing them, how to hammer nails into wood. That could be, some children just take to that like ducks to water and could spend half an hour trying to master that and then come back the next day, or not master it, but it's they're up for the challenge the next day to see if they can master it. So there's perseverance qualities that you can instill. So yeah, lots of polishing the windows, washing the windows, polishing, scrubbing tables, sewing. You can go online and look. There's copious amounts of Montessori resources online that parents can look up, practical life work, and you can make up these things. You can go to the op shop and get most of the things, materials on the practical life side of things, and create little jobs that you can set up on a shelf at home or dotted around the house, so that you're creating learning opportunities that children just have an innate love of order. So cleaning something brings them back into order.
Yeah. And of course, that's again, right, we're told, oh, cleaning, that's the lowliest job you could do, oh, only stupid people, who can't do anything else clean. But I mean, you can't live in a clean environment unless you know how to clean. And
Well, Campbell, it's
so often with people living in filth and watching Netflix.
that's right. It's even more than that, because it creates the micro and the macrocosmos. So Dr. Montessori realized that if she saw a child with behavior that wasn't positive, she would get them to polish something or clean something, because she knew that they were inwardly cleaning an aspect of themselves, working on their own psychology within. And once they've done that, they come out with order, and more positive behaviour is seen. So they've had a chance to work it out with their inner teacher. They've gone up and communed with their higher self, and they're just transmute, like there's this flame of transmutation that happens around them, and they work it out, and it's done.
Yeah, right. And they don't need, silly indoctrinated adults to tell them what to do and then yell at them when it's not done the right way. I mean, it's just, I mean, we know, right? I mean, it's in the Bible and everything, children, right? It's all about the children, and what we do and what we let them experience is how we're going to, create the future, really. Because, as I said again, we're right there at the moment. So what do you see the future of, like, well, let's say the next 10 years? What do you see happening in the next 10 years with education?
Well, I see that we need to change our focus of how wonderful children are, and the early years are more powerful than the senior years and university years. I mean, it's got its place, but down here in early childhood is where you set the stage for the platform for them to get up here. So I think people need to be respectful for children and create learning environments that are built on respect for them, so that they can become the masters of who they are. But also creating spaces also. Like, I don't see school as just
A building, yeah.
prep to, grade 6. I think it's preconception and getting the mother and the father prepared for receiving and bringing in a child. And so, there's a whole dietary thing, there's a vibrational thing that parents need to be aware of. So bringing into their own consciousness music that isn't got, that doesn't have jagged rhythms or, a low vibration. So raising the vibration of the mother throughout conception, and then the whole, birth to one, there's a whole beautiful dance happening with mums there and dads. So it's the unfolding of the child up until 6. And it's a retraining of teachers to know that we've got a divine spark, we've got a soul, and, attune with the soul. I think that's the thing that teachers need to bring to the table with their instructing children, so that they know, holding that soul and knowing what that soul needs, so therefore they need to have a spiritual understanding of a certain caliber themselves to be able to work in that space. And it's not a space like every Tom, Dick and Harry to come into the early years and it's a free for all, teach the children. We see, childcare centres. Anybody can go and look after the children, Cambell. And, I've seen that. I've been in it. I've seen children being put to their mid-time nap with rock and roll music, and the educator thinking that was okay. And, it's just a whole free-for-all, and setting children up for mechanisation, animal instinct kind of behaviour. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on and
and of course they're businesses as well now, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. The studies that are coming out now, though, show that boys that were put in long daycare centres and childcare centres early, by the time they're teenagers, the mental problems that they have go through the roof, and particularly boys suffer more in childcare than females.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I suppose, boys were, we're normally out on the land with dad, right? Walking around doing stuff, getting taught stuff, and they don't want to be locked up and told, don't do that, don't do this. And I mean, how different are girls and boys in those young years? Like, do you have different ways of teaching them, or do you keep just
No.
one group and let them sort of integrate and teach each other?
Right, that's right. So it's the soul. It's the soul that's unique. So you're preparing the environment for that soul to outpicture what it is that they want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's basically the way education should be, right?
Absolutely.
Just let children know, and that's another thing is we need to listen to children. We've got this concept of they don't know anything, but the truth is they're a lot closer to source than we are.
That's right. They've just come from source. They've got the purity. They've got the light. So that's what we need to do. So the schooling systems or the educational systems of the future is creating an environment that maintains that light and that allows them to bring out more and capture more. And, they are pillars of fire. And, when they're allowed to be who they are and know who they are, they blaze forth. They do.
Yeah. And, we're in a bit of a pickle, or we're coming out of it. But it just shows how fast things can change and how it's a big, message to us of how powerful we really are.
Yes.
Because, I mean, look at society, how much, it's literally 90% of their resources go into indoctrinating us. School, media, movies, books, social media, everything, politicians, all this stuff. And it's all to tell you, no, you're just a human in a 3D world. You're not powerful. Shut up and do what you're told. Pay your taxes. And that's, so that should show us. All we need to do is shift a little bit, and this whole thing just crumbles.
Absolutely. And, maintaining children so that, we're teaching them so that they stay connected to their spirit, so that by the time they're youth, they know who they are. They know that they're still connected to their spirit. And, our youth suicide rates are disgusting. It gives us, a red flag that the system.
I mean, I know, right? What a sign of a sick society. Our children are killing themselves. I mean, we've definitely failed so far, but we can change that, right? And all we have to do is something different. And so everyone who's watching out there, obviously, if you've got kids at school, I would have a real think about what's going on there. Who's teaching them? What's the energy level of these people? And what kind of person is that going to get? Well, what kind of man or woman, I should say, is that going to create? Because we know at the moment there's children, sort of 5 and under, it's probably up to 7, that they're all having speech difficulties now because no one can see anyone's mouth move.
I know.
And so this is how children learn recognition, and babies. I just can't imagine a mother holding a baby like this, and the mother's got a mask on. And we know this happens. The baby doesn't know what it's looking at anymore. Literally, with facial recognition cameras, you can draw a line across your face, and it won't recognize you.
No.
It's happening with the child, the baby.
So the basic communication cues are not even being picked up and expressed. Yeah.
So
scary.
And that's going to cause a lot of problems for a massive, big percentage of the population. So, schools like this are really going to be the way to solve that. We're going to have to sort of, let's do what we can, try and reprogram or unprogram people.
But I think it's coming from a community level as well. Like in the community that I'm in the south coast of New South Wales, parents are awake and they're aware that their children learn differently and they're coping really well outside the schooling system, and we want to unplug them from what they've come from. So things are becoming quite organic within the communities around Australia, around the world. In fact, I went to Canberra on Saturday
Oh,
to.
you did, you were there. Nice.
And I had my white top, reclaim the line hashtag top on and teacher on the back, and Montessori on the back. And I had a parent come up to me and start talking to me about how she and her community have formed together down in Victoria. A beautiful schooling, educational system where somebody happened to have an extra house on their farm. They've taken this house over, and there's about 35 families that use this house. They've set half it up as Montessori and half up as a Steiner program, and broken it up over a few days a week, and have teachers coming in, and so it's a real community effort that everybody came online and got this up and running. So it just depends on what the needs of your community are and the age brackets, etc., of who's there, what they want. And again, listening to what the children want. The youth in our community want to be together. They want to connect up. They want to have time together. They want to socialise. And so it's not like they don't want to be, away from anyone. They don't want to be plugged into the laptop. They're actually saying they want community, and they want to be with their friends and have that heart connection.
Nice. And that's as simple as it is, right? Just find your tribe, find people on the same path and get things together. And this can all be done. This is how we rebuild the education system. We don't need schools, and we don't need to pay all these fees. I mean, even just public schools, pretty expensive these days. So if you're paying anything, take all that money and put it into something better. And of course, like Christine said, there's lots of resources. Again, I'll leave the link for your channel below. Everyone go across, have a look. It's a new channel, which you'll be putting up lots of interesting information. And I'll leave some links below for that. What was that book called again? Sorry about.
It's The Secret of Childhood by Dr. Maria Montessori.
Secret of Childhood. And also check out Dr. Maria Montessori. She sounds like a very interesting lady. She's obviously passed now.
Yeah, so in the 1800s, she was using language back then that we can relate to now, and science has actually documented now her work. So it's all energetic, it's all cosmic learning.
Was she a channeler at all, or did she sort of speak about that, or not really? But obviously she kind of was.
She was. She brought it down. She was a devout Catholic, so she used her understanding of religion, I suppose, and the light to use that dialect to talk about the conversion of children. She saw that they were converted, she was quite tapped in. And so to talk about heart intelligence back then, and and that's why we don't hear much about it, right? Wow, 100 years ago. It's interesting. She actually set up an atrium to the side of her classroom where children could actually go and pray. So when they had the calling to just go up and leave the room and go into the atrium. So she had it set up as a religious kind of artifacts, but children were, working in this space. And at one point, Dr. Montessori had different religions from around the world come and visit this atrium. And so we had, Catholic, we had, all the different Buddhism, all standing around watching the children working, and each person that was observing could identify something from their own religion from what the children were doing. So they all could take aspects of their own understanding as to what they were seeing. So again, allowing children to be with God and to be within is really powerful. And even more than that, these children that had access to the atrium, their learning and IQ and abilities surpassed other children in the Montessori room that didn't have access to the atrium.
Wow.
They even accelerated even more.
That's another
atrium.
That's a great idea, isn't it? Right, yeah. Wow. I mean, Oh, gosh, we got it so right. We don't even see kids as spiritual really at all, do we?
No, but they are talking to God all the time. And it's almost their higher self is kind of lowered down. So they have really quick access to divinity and God straight, it's just straight off the bat. And that's why their connection is so pure. And
why they get so frustrated when we silly adults, don't listen to them or tell them to shut up or blah, 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 because they know they're speaking the truth. They're like, hello.
Yeah.
Feel a bit like us over the last 2 years, I think. Can't you see it?
So when you ask me what do I see for 10 years down the track, I see that we've got spaces that children can commune with God at an early age, can connect to their own inner source, and giving them opportunities to be independent and to follow their own heart and their own interests and to bring forth their inner genius, because every child has one. Yeah.
Definitely. And it needs to be nurtured, or else we're not going to get, grown up geniuses, clearly. Awesome. Well, that was really good. Thank you. I mean, that was a really good overview of Montessori and everything. Like I said, I'll leave links below. And go check out Christine's channel, and yeah, maybe we'll have another chat in the future and sort of go a bit deeper on some of those topics, because like I said, I didn't know a lot about Montessori, but you've raised some really interesting topics that are definitely what we need to be implementing at the very least going forward, to create this new earth that we're all building at the moment.
Absolutely. And realign our children to their north, their true north. That's what I'm my vision about.
All right. Well, maybe our next chat we can get into what all that is about. Resetting the compass.
Yes.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you, Cambell, for having me on.
Thank you so much, for your time and your work and everything. And like I said, links below. Go check out Christine's channel. Give her a like, subscribe, share. But also keep in mind, it's a very new channel. She's still working out what spirit is telling her to do. So
but that's right. I got my calling in 2020, so it's taking me this long to drag my feet, because it's the last thing I wanted to do. But you can't.
Yeah, it gets easier. That's how this channel started. Literally, didn't know what I had to. Go watch my early videos. I didn't know what I was doing. But this is the thing, right? We don't know what we're doing, but we're doing it anyway.
Right. We've been given the mission, so we just do as we're told.
Go forward.
All
so
right.
any suggestions you've got of topics you want Christine to touch, go leave them on her channel as well. So thank you so much, Christine. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye now.